Government Shutdown 2025. These are the real victims. The autumn air carried a chill that matched the mood of the nation. 4 weeks now, the U.S. government had been in shutdown, its doors closed, its workers furloughed, its citizens left in uncertainty. Paychecks were halted, public services delayed, and frustration simmered quietly beneath the surface of daily life. Amid the noise of political blame and televised debates, ordinary people were the ones paying the real price. Welcome to African Stories by Asada, the Cynic Driver's YouTube channel. Where are you watching from? Alex, a weary ride-share driver, had seen the effects firsthand. Every ride told a different story: a federal worker unsure how to pay rent, a mother worried about losing food assistance, a retiree whose medical paperwork sat untouched in some locked office. Between fares, Alex parked by a small city park, watching children play under half-lit street lamps and wondering how long people could keep pretending things were normal. Before we dive into the 2025 government shutdown, we encourage you to rate the video and tell us in the comments below if you are affected one way or the other by the shutdown. Let us know where you are watching from. Like, share, and subscribe so that you will be the first to be notified of our next video coming up. What began as a simple break from driving became something deeper. A moment of reflection about a nation stuck between gridlock and hope. In that quiet hour, surrounded by stillness and uncertainty, Alex began to understand that the shutdown wasn't just about money or politics. It was about people, their patience, their pain, and their quiet resilience. I've been sitting here in the park for nearly an hour, the engine of my car cooling under the fading afternoon sun. The air feels heavy, not from weather, but from the weight of everything that's stopped working lately. The government has shut its doors again, and somehow, it feels like the entire country exhaled and forgot to breathe back in. They call it a shutdown, as if you could flip the switch back on whenever you want. But the truth is, for people like me, rideshare drivers, single parents, retirees, those working paycheck to paycheck, it's not just the government that's closed. It's opportunity. It's stability. It's trust. I see it every day in my passengers' faces, the same tired question echoing in different words. When will they start caring again? When the news first broke that Congress had missed the budget deadline, I wasn't surprised. Disappointed, sure. Angry. But surprised? Not anymore. This is the same show we've all been forced to watch over and over, with the same actors and the same ending. The only thing that changes is how many people suffer in between. You'd think passing a budget, the basic blueprint of keeping a country running, would be the simplest task of governing. But now it's a bargaining chip, a political weapon. And as I sit here, the park around me strangely quiet, I wonder if the folks on Capitol Hill have any idea what it feels like to live in the country they keep holding hostage. Today, an older woman named Irene sat in my back seat, clutching a canvas grocery bag that looked too light for comfort. She told me she works part-time at a federal office that's now temporarily closed. Temporarily, that word carries so much false hope. She's been furloughed for 3 weeks, waiting for Congress to make up its mind while her bills don't wait a second. I'll get back pay, they say, she told me, but back pay doesn't buy food now. She laughed a little after saying it, but it wasn't a joyful sound, more like exhaustion disguised as humor. I dropped her off at a food bank. The irony hit me hard. A government worker relying on charity because the government stopped working. Everywhere I go, I hear similar stories. A TSA officer I drove last week said he still had to show up at the airport, even though his paycheck had been delayed for 2 cycles. You know what's funny, Alex? He said, staring out the window. The senators still get paid. His laugh was hollow. He wasn't wrong. Members of Congress still receive their salaries because their pay is legally protected, even when everything else grinds to a halt. It's strange. The people with the power to end the shutdown feel the least of its sting. Meanwhile, the ones who keep the country's machinery running, clerks, guards, scientists, janitors, are left twisting in the wind. There's something cruel about that, isn't there? Watching people who can't miss a paycheck try to survive without one, while those responsible for their misery keep collecting theirs without interruption. I imagine the conversations in Washington. Heated words, polished speeches, the blame tossed back and forth like a football. They call it politics, but from down here, it looks more like neglect. If there's one thing the shutdown teaches you, it's how invisible ordinary people really are. We only matter in election season. After that, we're just numbers in a report they'll never read. The economy feels it too. My rides have dropped by a third since the shutdown started. People aren't going out as much, not spending on restaurants or weekend trips. Some of my regulars, federal workers mostly, told me they're cutting everything non-essential. And when they cut back, so do I. It's like dominoes falling, except these aren't wooden blocks. They're real people, real paychecks, real anxiety. They say every week of shutdown costs billions to the economy. I can believe it. I see it in the empty back seats, in the quiet restaurants, in the eyes of the bartender who now only works 3 nights instead of 5. One of my favorite routes used to take me past the local federal park. I drop families off for picnics, tourists for photos. But lately, the gates are locked. The grass is overgrown, trash bins overflowing. Without rangers and maintenance workers, the beauty fades quickly. It's strange how fast neglect shows. I sat there last Sunday, just staring at the closed sign. The park looked like a metaphor for everything else, something once public and shared, now fenced off by dysfunction. Yesterday, I picked up a young mom named Trina with 2 little kids in car seats. She told me she relies on WIC benefits, a program that helps women and children with groceries. But her local office is closed, and she's been scrambling to find substitutes for formula and produce. They said funds will run out if this goes on much longer, she told me, her voice breaking. It hit me like a gut punch. The idea that children could go hungry because adults in suits refuse to compromise feels almost unreal. But it's happening right now, in cities and towns across the country. The shutdown also hits veterans hard. My cousin served in Afghanistan. He's been waiting months for a benefits claim to process, but now his caseworker's furloughed. It's like being stuck in neutral, he told me. You can see the road ahead, but your car won't move. I get that. That's how the whole country feels right now, idling, wasting fuel, while the drivers up top argue about who gets the wheel. Even folks who think they're insulated aren't. Small businesses that contract with federal agencies are hurting. I talked to a contractor last night. His project payments are frozen. We've got workers to pay, materials to buy, he said. But the checks stopped coming. I thought about that later, how a shutdown trickles down until it hits the very bottom, flooding every crevice of daily life. My neighbor, a retired nurse, told me she worries about inspections, food, water, safety. Some of those agencies are operating with skeleton crews, delaying checks. What if something slips through the cracks? She asked. I didn't have an answer. Maybe something already has. We'll only find out later, when the damage is done. The thing that gnaws at me most is how easily this has become normal. You hear the phrase, government shutdown, and people shrug. As if it's weather, something that just happens. But behind that phrase are single parents missing paychecks, veterans missing benefits, children missing meals. It shouldn't be normal. It should be an outrage. Sometimes, when I'm driving at night and the streets are empty, I think about how many families are sitting in dark living rooms right now, wondering how to pay rent. The silence of a car at 2 a.m. has a way of amplifying those thoughts. You start asking yourself who's looking out for the people who keep the country running. The teachers, the postal workers, the janitors, the federal clerks. The answer, most nights, feels like no one. There's also the moral question. Why do elected officials still draw paychecks while others can't? I understand the legal explanation, sure. Permanent appropriation, constitutional salary protection. But ethics isn't law. It's decency. If Congress wanted to, they could refuse their pay until the shutdown ends. Some have done it symbolically, but most don't. Maybe they've forgotten what it's like to check a bank balance with trembling hands. I keep hearing the same sentiment from riders. What can we even do? It's a fair question. The system feels far away, unresponsive. But maybe the answer is to make noise, real, uncomfortable noise. Call offices, write letters, flood inboxes. Not in anger alone, but in insistence. Let them know this isn't abstract policy, it's life, slowed to a crawl. I imagine what would happen if every citizen affected by the shutdown sent their story directly to Washington, Not as statistics, but as names, faces, words. Maybe then the lawmakers would see beyond their talking points. But maybe not. Maybe they've built walls thicker than our voices can reach. The seniors suffer quietly. I drive one named Harold every Wednesday. He's 74, living on Social Security, but the local office that helps him manage his medical forms has closed. They say it's temporary, he told me. Everything's temporary, until it's not. That line stayed with me all day. The man fought in Vietnam, and now bureaucracy has him cornered again. At gas stations, grocery lines, cafes, people whisper about the shutdown like it's the weather. There's a fatigue that's hard to describe. We've gotten so used to dysfunction that we stop expecting anything better. That's dangerous. Because once you stop expecting, you stop demanding. And when the public stops demanding accountability, those in power stop feeling any urgency to deliver it. I used to think government was something distant, marble buildings, polished speeches. But the longer I drive, the more I see it as a reflection of the people it's supposed to serve. If the system is broken, maybe it's because too many of us have stopped believing we can fix it. We vote every few years, then tune out. I include myself in that. Maybe it's easier to complain than to engage. But this shutdown is a wake-up call. A broken system doesn't repair itself. The young are watching too. I picked up a college student, political science major, heading home for the weekend. It's disillusioning, she said. How do you stay hopeful when your leaders can't even keep the lights on? I told her the truth, I don't know. Hope feels like a luxury lately. But maybe that's why we need it most. I remember during the 2018 to 2019 shutdown, the longest in history, the damage ran deep. Delays, losses, unpaid weeks. Economists said some effects were permanent. And now here we are again, repeating history. It's as if no one learned. The wheel keeps spinning, grinding people underneath it. When the government shuts down, it's not just offices that close, it's trust that erodes. Every delay, every unpaid worker, every locked door chips away at the belief that our leaders serve us. I can't help but think that's the real danger, not the financial losses, but the loss of faith. A nation without trust is just geography. I've started to wonder what would happen if ordinary people ran the government for a week. The nurses, the teachers, the truckers, the janitors, the Uber drivers. I bet the first thing we do is sit down and find a compromise, because we don't have the luxury of not solving problems. Our lives depend on solutions. As I sit here, the sun dipping below the skyline, the park growing quiet, I think about all the stories I've heard these past few weeks. The mom, the veteran, the senior, the TSA worker. They're not headlines, they're neighbors. And all of them, in their own way, are paying the price for someone else's stubbornness. Maybe that's what this moment is supposed to teach us, that democracy isn't self-cleaning. It requires care, attention, and participation. We can't just wait for Washington to fix itself. We have to make enough noise that they can't ignore us. Until then, I'll keep driving, keep listening, keep telling these stories. Because silence in times like these feels like surrender. And I'm not ready to give up just yet. A quick reflection. When the government shut down, the city didn't stop breathing. It just started breathing slower. I could feel it in the rhythm of my rides. Fewer people talking, fewer lights in store windows, fewer reasons to smile. I parked by the park one afternoon, sat on a bench, and watched the world go on. Slower, quieter, smaller. It's strange how something decided in a room hundreds of miles away can ripple through the lives of millions. The people who voted to close the government probably didn't think about Irene, the retired clerk who now visits the food bank. Or Trina, the single mom who can't get baby formula because her WIC benefits are frozen. Or the TSA worker still showing up to his job, serving a country that isn't paying him. The government is supposed to be like a clock, its gears turning to keep society in rhythm. But when the clock breaks, time doesn't stop. People just have to guess what hour it is. Some fall behind, others rush ahead. And the ones who built the clock keep arguing about who dropped it. As I sat there, I thought about fairness. Why do politicians still get paid while janitors, veterans, and food inspectors wait for back pay? Maybe it's because those in power have forgotten what waiting feels like. The tightness in your chest when bills are due, or the way a grocery list shrinks when your wallet does. The truth is, the shutdown isn't just a political failure. It's a moral one. It's proof that when empathy leaves the room, leadership leaves with it. The people suffer, not because there isn't enough money, but because there isn't enough compassion. I turned on my car and started driving again. Each passenger had a story, and each story sounded the same. Exhaustion, uncertainty, hope fading but not gone. And somewhere between pickups and drop-offs, I realized something simple: governments can shut down, but humanity shouldn't. Moral lessons. When leaders forget who they serve, it's up to the people to remind them, not through anger alone, but through unity, compassion, and persistence. Because when the system stops working, the kindness of ordinary people keeps the country moving. Thanks for watching. Please leave comments, like, share, and subscribe so that you will be the first to be notified of our next video coming up.